March 26th, at the 72nd Academy Awards, American Beauty won Best Picture. Kevin Spacey and Hilary Swank won for Best Actor and Actress. May 1st, Italian tenor Andrea Bocelli sings for Pope John Paul II in Rome. August 16th, Lifehouse would release Hanging by a Moment, a single that would go on to be Billboard's Song of the Year in 2001. Today, we go way back to 2000.
Hey y'all, welcome to the Wayback Recap, a podcast that obsessively explores all things past, from our favorites in TV and film,
to Halloween McNugget buddies. You guys remember in Happy Meals, they came out like Frankenstein, Dracula Nugget, desperately trying to get some of that California Raisins money. Smart move, McDonald's.
I'm Brandon.
And I'm Patricia.
And this episode, we're talking MTv'sFear. MTv'sFear was a short-lived but prolific reality show airing from September 21st, 2000 to April 28th, 2002.
Right before my birthday.
Yeah, absolutely. This show, in my opinion, paved the way for many paranormal reality shows that we have today. So you think about like the shows like Ghost Hunters, Most Wanted, Ghost Adventures.
Definitely.
Zach Baggins.
Definitely.
Is that,
Zach Baggins, yep.
I think those are very popular shows. I don't watch them because I watched the original.
I watch them and celebrate them daily, if not weekly.
Yeah, they're all on like Discovery, right?
They're all, Discovery Plus. Been fucking it up.
Okay, so the creators are Martin Kunert and Eric Maines. They originally pitched the idea as a movie, kind of like a pseudo-documentary style MTV-esque reality show that goes awry. It was kind of in the vein of like the Hell House meets Real World, The Legend of Hell House, which is like a 1973 movie.
Hard.
At that time, so we're in like 2000s, I was a freshman? September 21st, 2000, I was a freshman. What year were you in?
I would have been
junior, right?
Coming into my junior year, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like this
sophomore. I graduated in 2002.
This is a few months before we actually met.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Cute.
Same season.
Memories.
Yeah. Okay, so at that time though, Real World was hot. So was Road Rules.
Yeah, I would say that this fits the MTV lineup perfectly. Like at this, like 1999, 2000, MTV, we're talking Singled Out.
Yeah.
We're talking The Real World, Road Rules. Like MTV already had several reality shows cooking.
Yeah, and then like you even put in TRL.
Oh,
like,
definitely.
Right? Like that demographic of like young people around that age. But
Definitely.
I guess like TRL was probably like more so high school age.
I think we're also coming up to that golden age of what was the show where you could come out and if the guys liked you, they liked you. If not, they
Next. Dude, Next is
brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
If you were on Next and you have like emotional problems,
reach out to us. We would love to hear your story. So many questions. We'll interview you. You can be on the show.
I would never have gone on Next.
No, I am far too sensitive of a flower. No, thank you.
I would have wrecked the bus.
And then what was the show where they went into Room Raiders?
I've never got the feel of that.
No, me either. It's a hard no for me. My room is private.
Private.
But like MTV was definitely into this. Like MTV loved getting 3 20-year-olds together and giving them some money to do something.
Truly and honestly. So the creators then, like knowing that, they went to shop it around.
Smart.
They met up with Beau Flynn, who would eventually become one of the executive producers. Beau at the time, or all his life really, was obsessed with the show In Search Of, which starred Leonard Nimoy. Do you know that show?
Oh, I do know the show.
I know of the show, and I've seen like distant clips on YouTube, but I've never actually watched the show.
I've also never really watched it, but my mother's a huge Trekkie. So
that's right. I always forget that about Sue.
Yeah. So we celebrated. If you were a Star Trek alum, we lifted you up in my house.
That's what's up.
So I am sure we watched In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy. I'm sure we did.
Yeah. So he wanted to reboot that show because he loved it so much.
Smart.
But he decided to merge the idea with the movie and the reboot. And that's kind of how they created the premise of Fear. But at that time, it was a movie called Dare.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The pitch for the movie was that these kids go into this allegedly ghost-occupied swamp area.
Quote, unquote.
Right. Honey Island in Louisiana. And it turns out the place really is haunted, and then shit happens for real.
I don't want to derail us, but before we move past it, Beau Flynn is the coolest name on the planet. And it's the alias I'm going to use from here on out. Hi, Bo Flynn. Nice to meet you. Also, Honey Island sounds lovely.
Honey Island does sound lovely. It sounds like a dressing.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds
Honey,
delicious.
I would like a side of Honey Island dressing, please. With my Louisiana hot sauce chicken or
Yum.
something.
Hi,
I don't know.
you're only making me hungry.
Yeah, I think it's the marijuana making you hungry. Actually, cannabis. I don't like saying.
Could be. Brandon likes to call it medicine. And that's my favorite. Hey, I'm going to the medicine store today. Do you need any medicine?
Okay. So with that premise, Bo Flynn, Coonert, and Maines took it to old college buddy Don Olmsted, who, spoiler alert, also liked the idea and became an executive producer. But she had her own tweaks to the idea.
I love that they took it to a lady. And they're like, let's get a lady involved here.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on.
Smart.
She's probably going to be the one who's like keeping it all together.
Exactly. She's going to push it along. She's going to make it happen.
She actually does, because she had ties with MTV. That's how
cool.
MTV actually got like into it.
Cool.
Because she had worked with MTV.
Love it.
From time to time.
What's up, Dawn?
She tells Bo, what if we did the show for real? Like, instead of making the movie, what if we just made the show within the movie? Don's thinking here. She's like, you guys like the idea of like the real world and stuff like that. But guess what? Those things are cheap to make.
Cheap.
So instead of making a movie, let's make a TV show.
I think Dawn is the smartest person in the room. And again, that's MTV's sweet spot. Like, MTV started showing music videos, which were free to show. So we always have to remember that whenever somebody comes to MTV with a project, it needs to be cheap.
Yeah.
They are not spending money on a show.
Oh, absolutely not. Maybe now.
Maybe.
I don't really, again, not MTV's target demographic anymore. Aged out of that. But anyways, Don took it, the new idea, to MTV because she had worked there before.
Smart.
And they were like, dope, we like it. But how are you going to pull this off? How are you going to actually make it scary?
Good question.
Remember, shows like Unsolved Mysteries, In Search Of, and even Real World and Road Rules, all the time, that they like what Fear is based off of, they all had camera crews.
Always. So
that inherently makes it less scary, because in the audience's mind, because there is like a camera crew and they know that there's like a camera guy, a boom and mic, that there could be like interference with that.
Exactly. It feels more artificial. It feels more crafted.
Yeah, exactly.
Orchestrated is maybe a better word.
Yeah, exactly. So producers wanted to create like this sense of isolation. They wanted the contestants to be alone. So they devised this genre-defining technology. They came up with an idea of like people filming themselves. So essentially it was like this vest that was worn with a camera and a gooseneck arm, like a really long arm. And it extended out a bit, and it pointed back in the face and the shoulders for medium close-up. They actually got the idea from Bo Flynn's company that produced Requiem for a Dream.
Also in 2000.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I also did some quick research.
Thank you.
And noted that the Blair Witch Project had also just come out.
Yes.
And that's also that self-shot kind of quote-unquote footage.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get a little into that later,
but
no, we can get into it now, because you know what, I'm a professional, honey. But like with that, with the Blair Witch Project, that's more of like a found footage kind of, rather. Well, I guess it's essentially the same thing, right? But with what the Blair Witch Project did for Fear, because Fear was actually in production before Blair Witch had already came out.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So they were like they were shopping this idea around before the Blair Witch Project movie came out. And there was a lot of hesitation around like going for something like that. But when the Blair Witch Project came out and was a huge success. Networks, everyone knew that there was an audience for that. And so that's why they picked Fear to like go on.
And I mean, from a industry standpoint, we gotta look at that money factor again. The Blair Witch Project costs nothing. It costs like $5,000. And Fear is eliminating even that because it's making them wear the cameras.
Yeah.
Like, the people behind this were very, very smart.
Yeah.
I'm giving major props.
So back to the camera rigs. They were the same ones, or they weren't the same ones, but they were inspired by the ones that Jared Leto and Jennifer Connelly wore in Requiem for a Dream in certain shots. I haven't seen it in a long time, so it's been a
Ages
while.
and ages and
Yeah,
ages.
I would actually like to do a rewatch. Maybe we'll do it for the show.
Maybe for the show.
I don't know. I
It's a
don't.
downer. It's so
Yeah, I was
hard for
gonna
me to
say
watch downers.
I've only seen it once. I was like, ooh, too much,
This
too
was
real.
heavy. But I do remember that it generated that shot of like you're looking up at the
Yeah.
person as the person is like totally unencumbered. Like you just see a
Yeah.
person. It's a very cool shot.
So the show Fear kind of used that same idea to make their own. It wasn't the exact same one, but it was really inspired by that. They actually coined it the clam cam.
That's impossible to say.
Yeah, it's no finger cam, which is what I used to say to Patricia when we lived together in like the early 2000s.
There was only one bathroom in the apartment. So if you were showering, you left the door unlocked because what if somebody needed the bathroom?
Yeah.
So we were also college students. So we were just in each, like one person would be in the shower drinking a beer and the other person
just say me.
And the other person would just be in the bathroom talking to that person. Like we didn't have a lot of boundaries. And so I'm not sure if it was drunk Brandon, but I want to say it was drunk Brandon.
It was drunk Brandon.
He would pop his hand over the shower curtain and go, finger cam. And let me tell you guys, to this day, nothing makes my mean mom laugh more than finger cam. It's the story she always thinks of.
I appreciate that about
Yeah,
you.
she
It's
loves
some of
you.
my better drunken moments.
Really funny. And it has lingered.
So the clam cam. It was basically like a harness that had its arms with a camera mounted on the end. The body was like the tripod, and when you ran, you would get this incredible low angle shot of their face.
Yes.
And like again with like the found footage stuff, that's like the scariest part because it's like you're being disoriented. You know what I mean?
All you see is the person.
Yeah.
You don't see the person's where they are or what they are interacting with. And that's terrifying because you're just looking at the person.
And how afraid they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. These cameras, like the clam cam, they were infrared, so it didn't matter how dark it was designed to kind of make the scary effect that you can always see.
Nails it A+.
So naturally the clam cams were used for dramatic emphasis, especially like when contestants were freaking out.
Of course.
Yeah, editors would go straight for that clam cam. It was really dope because the cameras would get knocked off kilter sometimes, like you were just talking about, and they would like say they ran into something, and then half the time it's not even showing the person's face or just half the face, and it's just really, really terrifying.
It's very scary.
Now that the movie is a reality show, they have to have a cast, general rules, and a premise or a tone for the entire show.
Right.
Right? Still thinking of like casting like a movie. They want to use kind of like the Breakfast Club as a roadmap to get them there. They wanted 6 distinct, contrasting types of people essentially trapped in a building.
Yeah, reality show 101.
Yeah, truly and honestly, right?
You got
conflict, man.
You got your tropes.
Yeah.
You fill them in with the best options you have. Start recording.
Truly and honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna take it a little bit away from Fear for a moment and talk about my own reality TV show experience. I would say that our cast was definitely a trope.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Like all of us kind of fit like a certain kind of like weird demographic.
Those tropes aren't bad.
No.
I'm not saying that that's bad. It's just, it is the opposite of creative.
Very much so, right? But that's what they were doing for reality shows now, and especially in like 2000.
I was just going to say, we also have to think this is 20 years ago. We are still learning about what reality shows even are in 2000.
Yeah.
Like that definition is still developing.
Ooh, girl, we're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about that. I could write a thesis on that. I'm sure other people already have, and I'm not nearly as smart as those people.
But I would still love to read your thesis.
Thank you. It would have ketchup on it.
Perfect. I got fries.
So looking at like real world and road rules is kind of like guide map again for the new TV series Fear. They are looking for that demographic.
Absolutely.
They want 6 contrasting types, but they also want kind of like good looking young people.
So we'll just hit it. You need an alpha male. You need a smart guy.
Yeah.
You need a non-white person.
Definitely.
You need a smart girl who's also pretty. You need a hot girl.
Me.
And maybe a smart girl and or a gay person.
Yeah, definitely me. But like, so they cast this type, but they were also looking for something a little bit more. Their casting process wasn't nearly as long as say like the real world road rules, which typically took like 6 weeks.
Like several rounds, right?
Yeah, several rounds.
Yeah.
Theirs was like a week long, which to me is like, what?
How
What do you learn about somebody in a week?
Good questions. How many episodes of Fear are in a season?
Okay, so
What my real question is, does the cast changes from week to week, right?
yes.
Okay, so that probably explains why there has to be a shorter screening process.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
we have to cast 12 episodes.
Well, we'll get into that a little
Okay,
bit
my
later.
bad.
No. I love this. You're interested. I am too. We'll talk more about this. Boo.
Hey, y'all. Are you tired of talking to yourself, screaming into the void while you slowly go insane?
Us too, sis. That's why we finally decided to start a podcast. After tossing around the idea for literally years, it was finally Anchor that helped us take the leap.
Which is really saying something because we can barely turn on computers. So it was always the technical side of podcasting that gave us pause. Luckily, Anchor has everything you need to make a podcast, all in one place and all totally free of charge.
The easy-to-use app provides for all aspects of recording, from storing and editing to producing your podcasts, all from the comfort of your laptop or your phone using the Anchor app.
Most importantly, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more, all for free.
Not only does your Anchor app take care of all your podcast needs, it can even make you money. Anchor provides sponsored content that you can include in your podcast that will generate revenue back to your show, all with no minimum listenership. Meaning, even if my crazy aunts are the only people who listen, we are still getting paid.
Maybe you love talking about 18th century battleships or the latest celebrity blunder. Take the leap. Anchor is with you every step of the way to make your podcast dreams a reality.
Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. So not only were they looking for like very good looking,
Of course,
distinct personalities, they wanted people to be cast that had kind of a little bit more emotion, a little bit more depth to them. They were looking for people who were like going through like some big life-changing moment.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like they wanted to be kind of like captivated within like a short period of time of talking to them. So it's very interesting. I have my thoughts on why they did that. I think that they wanted people who are like, in my opinion, like even knowing a little bit about like kind of like paranormal, when you're a little bit more emotional, you know what I mean? You're more sensitive to that.
If you're a bit more emotionally raw, there's more room, hypothetically, for paranormal things to attach themselves to you.
Yeah.
When people's shields are down because you're going through a tragedy or a trauma or just a stressful event, the idea is that paranormal
like
things...
Eleanor on House on Haunted Hill.
Exactly like The Haunting and Eleanor.
Oh, yes, The Haunting. My bad.
That's real, though.
Yeah.
Like people who are... Also, like people who are open-minded. I know I don't want to jump ahead, but one of the people in the episodes describes herself as a Celtic Catholic witch.
Yes.
That is a person who is open-minded to the paranormal.
Mama. Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah, you just don't want... There's a type. I get that.
Yeah, and so they were kind of looking for that, but they also wanted like skeptics too.
Absolutely.
But they were just looking for people who are like, say like you were having like a fight with your parents or something like that, or you're like maybe struggles coming out, or just something like that. Or
you've gone through a bad breakup, or maybe
yes,
like maybe your parents are a religion and you are not that religion.
Yeah,
things like that. And again, young people are constantly in transition, and where there is transition, there can be strife.
Absolutely. And so like this whole, like I will say this about the producers of this show, like they created an ambiance, and that was from beginning to end. So like they had this idea of like the casting process of what they wanted from people, and throughout the entire casting process they kind of really continued that feeling of like isolation and aloneness. That's not a word, but like with the cast, Like they essentially would get picked up from an airport, and whoever's transporting them wouldn't talk to them and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah. They would tell people like that to not talk to them. And I feel like this is very similar with most reality shows, but they took their phones away
Of
from them.
course.
Yeah, they took our phones when I was on a reality show. They took their phones. They told them to tell their friends that they couldn't have contact with them for 5 days, just like kind of like this
Yeah.
normal stuff. But then, like when they were in the hotel room and shit like that, like they were isolated even more so because they were only allowed to watch horror movies.
That's messed up.
Girl, you want to know the 2 horror movies they were allowed to watch?
Oh no.
I mean, well, there's more, but like 2
Tell
of them,
me.
The Shining
Perfect.
and Poltergeist.
That's messed up, man.
Yeah, they're fucking with people's heads, like psychologically or
After I watch a scary thing or read a scary thing, especially if I don't get my Moana cleanser, I am not going to bed. Like, do not take away the spirit of the ocean. That's the only way I'm going to recover from this. You lock me in my hotel room and you make me watch The Shining.
Mama.
I'm burning this hotel to the ground. You did that. That's on you, Beau Flynn.
But one of the producers, he was quoted as saying he's an old school reality producer. And I do think a lot of times before we really knew what reality TV was, people would mess with people's minds.
Yeah.
And I would even say this, like when I was doing a reality show, which was many years ago, like people were fucked up afterwards.
Of course.
It's a real mind.
You are huge. You are incredibly vulnerable
Yes.
when you're on a reality show.
Spent many a dollar
especially
in therapy.
A reality show like you were on. Like the whole point of the show is to like eat away at you and have you develop and like learn about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I can imagine being on something like so early on in the reality TV like processes, like the people who were on Survivor the first season, Rich Hatch, Sue Hawk, Kelly Wigglesworth, like I'm sure they were like in stardom, but then afterwards, like that shit had to like,
yeah.
I mean, Rich Hatch went to jail.
Right. And then think about it, like for me, the reality show I care the most about is RuPaul's Drag Race.
Absolutely.
And nowadays RuPaul's Drag Race comes with therapy. When you're on RuPaul, you have mandatory sessions with a counselor while you're on the show.
That is brilliant.
Because like Jinx Monsoon has talked about the wreck it did on her. Like several of the Ru girls had walked away from RuPaul, their experience at Drag Race, very messed up.
I believe that. I mean, I don't know if I'm even under contract anymore, but I'll talk about it and I'll get sued later, I guess.
Sue me, joke's on you. Now you have debt.
But like we did not have a therapist on our set too. However, later seasons I know that they did.
That's good.
Because we were like on the earlier half.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah. But yeah, I would have killed to have one before, during, and after.
Think about how far this has come. So like RuPaul today, we're providing an on-set counselor that you have mandatory sessions with versus this guy making them watch The Shining in their hotel room.
Girl, it's so much.
Rough.
He was, get it. So the same one, he said, it's like a holistic thing. The whole approach to it has to work. Participants have to come ready to play. They were primed already. This is all what he's saying. But again, this was a while ago. So,
sure, of course.
It could be taken out of context. And you just have to keep satisfying the expectations of what they are about to go through. So you have to keep like this whole facade, essentially, of them being in a paranormal kind of scared, alone.
Definitely.
Isolation. Yeah.
We'll talk about it more when we get into the episode. But this reality show does a really excellent job of emphasizing how alone the participants are.
Yeah.
They do like huge shots of the ground where there's one person.
Yeah.
And it's just the kid we're following. Like Ghost Hunters, you feel like there's 1,000 people there. Like you feel like there's a set there.
Oh, absolutely.
We've all gone through it. They've set up cameras everywhere. Fear, you see the participants. You see a couple outside shots, and then you see their cameras.
Yes.
It's very intimate. Like you are with them, and there is no one else there.
That's one of my favorite things about this show. After they get the cast, now they need a location.
Absolutely.
So Cooter and Maines had always envisioned a prison as the first setting.
Yeah.
So the episode that we're watching today is the pilot episode. I just want to keep that in your minds.
Thank you.
It was included in the original pitch document that it was going to be in a prison. specifically West Virginia State Penitentiary. Apparently, it's a notoriously brutal facility located in Moundsville, West Virginia, that had been open from 1876 to 1995.
Wow, that is a very long time.
Yeah, the 1876
That is
threw
a
me off.
very long time.
It's said to be inhabited by the spirits of an estimated 100 inmates. They had all met violent ends via execution. So the objective of the show was simple: walk into the darkest recesses of this building and see if you have the nerve to stay put.
Okay, so right away I have so much to say. First of all, prisons are notoriously prone to paranormal experiences. Prisons are places of darkness, violence, cruelty, and madness.
Yes.
So if you are like, oh, I want to go see proof of ghosts, and you're going to a prison to do that, you need to be very careful because these
Mama,
are violent people who
we
are
will
only
talk about this. Oh,
like,
I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I'm just
it's
so excited.
wild.
Yes.
And so, like, I'm a very open-minded person to this kind of stuff.
Me too.
And if I were to go to like a house and they were like, oh, this house is haunted, this is what we think happened, I would probably be open to go investigate that house. I would never go to a prison that was rumored to be haunted. Absolutely not.
Can I tell you something else about this rumored to be haunted prison?
Oh my gosh, okay.
So apparently it was built on like a native burial site. They flattened the land and then they put the prison on top of it.
It's just like it's like they wanted this to happen. It's like they were like, oh no, we got an idea. Let's make this really haunted place.
Yeah,
like, wow.
So once they secured the cast, the premise, and the location, and had the Blair Witch as kind of like their guiding light with the audience, MTV was like, all right, cool. Your premiere date, September 21st.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Shout out to Blair Witch. Like, again, can we talk about like Kismet for a minute? Like, these two things were in production at the same time, totally unrelated.
Yeah, that's wild.
And they both come out, like, are bam bam. That's so cool.
Creepy Brandon at 14 was so into
Oh my
this.
gosh, 99 was a great year. Great year.
We're greeted by grainy historical footage of a prison, interspersed with voiceover about murders and fires, and then we hear alarms blaring. The cacophony gets louder as the footage transitions into current day shots from today's episode, ending with a contestant alone crying in the dark. And then we get the fucking theme song. Into my brain. That shit is
Nightmare.
so dope.
It's amazing.
That is the perfect theme song for this show. It scares the hell out of me.
Really,
Voodoo.
It really puts you in the mindset.
Yes.
Like, this is not next. Like, this is a scary... You're about to watch some scary shit.
There's some scary shit, Cindy. Okay, so the title card of One Day Earlier appears. We get each individual cast member alone in their hotel room, interviewing themselves before their adventure begins.
Because remember, there's no cast.
No crew.
No crew, I'm sorry.
We have a cast.
My bad, guys. Like, there's no crew. So even in the hotel rooms, it is just kids, like, having a camera set up on them.
Yeah. We meet Steve. He's 21 from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. He's a cutie.
He's pretty cute.
Yeah,
and he's like top dog.
Yeah. He's got some pretty eyes and lips. He goes to UK. I see him wearing a UK
hat, girl. You know, I spotted it right away.
Yeah, University of Kentucky, for those of us who aren't like in the States. I went there for a very brief period of time. Then we have Ariana. She's 19 from La Cañada, California. I think that's how you say it.
I think you nailed it.
Okay. Derek, he's 24 from Chicago.
Chicago!
Yeah, Derek, hometown hero. Lauren, she's 18 from Long Island. Ryan from Montclair, California. And lastly, we have 21-year-old Christina from Huntington Beach, whose occupation is student of witchcraft.
Hi, Christina. That's a made-up thing.
I
love how ahead of the curve she is, because nowadays that's like your Bachelor or your Tinder thing. You're like, oh, I'm a toddler yoga instructor. I'm a student of witchcraft. That's my job. Cool, Christina. Cool.
I wonder how much that pays, honestly. I mean, if
You have to pay $48 a day to
is
do
she
it.
like Harry Potter? Is that what she's doing? Is she?
I just think she's at like a magic and oddity store, like just learning about red candles and incense. Like, she's really big into like saging things.
Definitely.
I just hope that's ethically sourced sage,
It's
Christina.
not. I
It's
can
not
guarantee that, especially not
guaranteed.
in 2000.
Yeah, you got it on Amazon. It is not. We'll cut that. We don't want to get sued.
Yeah, dude. Each cast member tells the camera what they think is about to happen. They kind of have like a general idea that they're going to go on a ghost hunt with camera equipment. It's going to be attached to them, and they know they're going to be alone. They know there's no camera crew, and they know that they're going to be sleeping during the day. And at night, they have to find this computer, which is going to give them tasks. And can I tell you, like, this is already messing with their head again because they're already fucking with their sleep schedules.
Exactly. And a lot of these confessionals are during the day. So
Yeah.
they have them awake during the day for at
Yes.
least something. So my theory, based on nothing, is that they kept them that first day, they kept them awake. They
Yeah.
go to the prison that night and they immediately have objectives to do that night. Meaning that night you're the most sleep deprived, you're the most nervous, you have the most adrenaline. Like that first night is going to be tense.
Yeah.
And again, this is all manipulation. I see you, producers.
We see you. During this kind of introduction, we learn the cast differs on their opinion of the paranormal. Steve is a full-blown skeptic with his fine ass. Derek says some nonsense about brainwaves. Like, so I didn't get it. He's much more smart than I am.
I have an opinion on Derek that develops as the episode goes, so I'm gonna wait.
Oh,
But
we're
gonna wait on it.
Okay. Christina is a full-on believer. She's a student of witchcraft. She's our resident witch. And then we get this shot of Christina saying, I sense them. I can feel them all around me.
Christina,
Very Nancy from The Craft.
Don't talk about Nancy like that. Like, Christina is my least favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
So then we get the title card, The Arrival. It's dusk. We get some shots of the exterior of the prison, followed by these still shots of our cast being led out of cars with hoods on their heads. Yes, girl, hoods on their heads.
This is straight up some Guantanamo Bay shit.
Mama.
Like, they have full hoods over their heads. It's just the image of them being led. Like, they all have a hand on the shoulder in front of them. So they're in a line. Just that visual, I'm already off put. I already don't like it.
Okay, so future episodes, people have vomited with these hoods on their heads, like several people.
Oh my gosh.
And they have left those hoods on their heads for hours. Like one of the producers was talking about that, and he was like kind of like giggling about it. He's like, we did some evil stuff.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's kind of the tone I got from the article that I read. Man.
Wow.
And the article that I read was like a mental floss article that was really, really interesting. I'll put it in the show notes, which is in the episode description.
I love that. I'm going to call back to that at the end of this episode because I have things to say.
Okay. And as Patricia was saying, they have their hands on their shoulders and the person in front of them is kind of like leading their way. They're eventually led to a cell and they all have to take off their hood for the introductions to finally meet each other. As they leave the cell, they kind of make their way to the computer. I'm sure they have like some general idea where to go.
So there's their safe space, which is the chapel. So that's where they'll have that's where they'll sleep. That's where the computer with instructions will be. And that's kind of like where they can all regroup.
We get the title card. The place is real. The people are real. All the events are true. Then the cast makes their way to the yard as the prison, and we get this inner tile kind of explaining our setup. It says 6 people. They don't know each other. They have never been here before. Their objective, to see if this place is haunted. The team then makes their way to the chapel. We get the next title card. No cameramen, no crew, only a prison surveillance system. They film their own experiences. They are alone. Again, reiterating that fact.
Alone. Like, you are alone. These 6 teenagers are here by themselves. There is no one here to help you. There is no safety net. There is no van that you can take to go. You're it. You're alone.
It's so, and that's another thing that they were saying too, like the producers were talking about, is like the idea of being alone and what you create in your head is a lot more scarier
Always.
than what is probably actually there.
Exactly.
Finally, the cast is at the safe house where we see this board with articles and pictures from the prison's past. There's some graphic photos, so trigger warning moving further ahead. There's pictures of inmates who have been hung in their own cells. There's one that was an inmate that was burned by another inmate.
Yikes.
Yeah, really messed up stuff.
And again, this is another manipulation.
Oh,
And this is the
yeah.
power of suggestion because now the producers, with this information, are telling the cast these bad things have already happened here.
Yeah,
So even if you thought this was totally an okay place, here is proof. I am showing you exactly what happened here. So now when you go about, you think you're going to see it because you've seen the pictures. Like this is very manipulative.
absolutely. The gang settles in and gathers around like the computer to get their mission. They go to the most 2000s website I've ever seen, dude.
It's remarkable how watching this computer scene took me back to a very specific time in my memory.
Man, me in my family's computer room, late night blue screen.
AKA my bedroom.
That was your bedroom?
Yeah, Sue made 100 bad choices, and the worst one was putting the computer in my room.
I just I just picture young Richard.
Yeah.
All the porn.
All the porn, all of the chat rooms where I just told crazy lies. Where I was just lying as like a 14-year-old in like Buffy chat rooms, being like ASL. It's ridiculous.
Oh man, I love chat rooms.
They were great.
They were a dark part of my past. So they click on this video, and we get a documentary that gives us the history of like the West Virginia State Penitentiary. And this was like a really important part of like Bo Flynn's idea for the show. So he always like a huge part of what he loved about like In Search of with Leonard Nimoy was like learning things. So this documentary was,
I love that too, man.
best way to just like really like give the information about what happened in the prison for both the audience as well as the contestants.
This might be thinking too hard about it. Did this documentary about the prison already existed, or did the show make this?
The show made this
Oh,
documentary.
no kidding.
And we'll talk about that at the end. There's a
Cool.
lot of stuff that is very interesting about how they actually produced this show.
Cool.
I will say though that like they said the crew as well as kind of like the producers and stuff from the article I read, the most frightening parts of like this whole process of the show was actually talking to like the people who used to live in the prison,
because there are several interviews with former residents of this prison.
Yes,
resident is not the prisoner.
Yeah, the stories that they tell are just really terrifying, they said, and it was just like, wow. Ooh. Anyway, so we're getting like this documentary that's giving us the history of West Virginia State Penitentiary. It was built in 1866. It was known as America's most violent prison at one point in time, condemned in 1995. It's probably most known to be one of the most supernaturally active places in the country.
This isn't the prison that inspired the Shawshank Redemption, is it? That one was in Pennsylvania. Pretty sure.
Yeah, I think that's Eastern State Pennsylvania.
There it is. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. We'll do hopefully our ghost buddies will know better.
There you go.
Yeah, if you're a listener and you know a lot about ghost hunting stuff and all that,
hit us up. We love ghosts.
I respect ghosts. There's a difference between.
I'm not inviting them in.
Okay, thank you. So we have an interview with the prison records clerk, John Massey, who confirms that there have been more deaths in 10 acres of this land than anywhere else in the U.S.
Wow.
We then interview convicted murderer, as they label him in this documentary, Jerry Collins, who kind of stares off into nothing as he's like gesturing with his hands in shackles. He goes, if you die in prison, it was like your spirit was just destined to wander the hallway, never to be free, which was really terrifying.
And I hate to agree with convicted murderers, but Jerry Collins is correct.
Yeah,
like there's no way a peaceful afterlife exists for you when you die in a prison.
Yeah,
it's just a period.
We then have Do you know Nancy Meyer? No, not the writer for what's the vampire books?
Twilight.
Twilight. That's
Isn't that Stephanie Meyer?
yes, it is. I've never read them. Sorry. Okay.
I thought at first it was that the writer of romantic comedies, Nancy something, who did like Something's Gotta Give.
Oh my gosh, I do know who you're
Is
talking
her
about.
name Nancy Myers?
It's probably
It
that.
doesn't
I think it
matter.
is. We'll look it up.
But this Nancy Meyer
is a psychic cop. Or excuse me,
Yes.
she's a police psychic. There's a very different. She's not a cop, but she helps cops. She's actually been featured on like episodes of Unsolved Mysteries
Whoa!
a couple times.
I'm doing a whole breakout episode on Nancy.
Yeah. She's like seen in the documentary and she's confirming that there's something hostile in the prison and it keeps running from her.
Whoa. That's interesting.
Yeah. We get more interviews with experts who basically tell us ghosts will fuck up mechanical equipment and electrical equipment. Nancy Meyer's back, and she makes it very clear that this prison is the spirit's home, and it's all they know. They're just like, that's where they know.
Yeah, this is their environment. This is our whole world.
And if you're walking around and poking around in their home, it's only going to make them mad, and they have to show them respect. The computer lets our cast know that over for the next few nights, actually, the mission is to determine if the prison is haunted, actually. So they must go to 6 locations where paranormal activity was documented, following only 4 rules. The first being, you must follow the instructions on the website for each supernatural hotspot.
Checks out.
Right? The second, use the camera to document experiences at all times.
Easy enough.
I wonder if that means on the toilet. But I have questions.
Is it producer. Big Brother rules where they get the toilet and shower?
I would never do Big Brother. I do too many weird things like pick my nose, and it would just be a meme. Rule number 3. If and only if you complete both nights' investigations, you will receive $3,000. And the last rule, if you decide to quit, you get nothing. And another team member has to complete your mission.
What I love about this is that in the year 2000, we were giving these kids $3,000. You can't even get a nice used car for $3,000.
Well, I looked it up. I think the exchange rate, I think it was like closer to like $5,000 now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I
don't know.
I'm just saying.
I don't understand math.
Me either.
I have a full story about in 8th grade year, Miss Haynes never taught us math. But
see a previous episode.
She didn't teach us about math because she got divorced.
I mean, listen. When I was 19 years old, after summer camp, when I came home with $800, I was the richest person I'd ever met. So I can't imagine at 19, if you gave me $3,000,
ma'am,
I would go like, I'm buying
cocaine.
all the sneakers.
I mean, sneakers.
I was just going to buy sneakers, but give it time.
Different childhoods.
What else I like about this final rule is you can't just give up. You can, but then you're done. That person, if you give up, you're going home.
Yeah.
End of the episode for you. And someone still has to do it. It's not like the task is no longer like, oh, no one can be in the hole. We can't go to the hole. No. No one is leaving. Y'all aren't leaving till someone does the task. So, 1, 2, 3 can go, but then 4, 5, 6, someone's got to go do it.
Yeah.
So I like it. Make those kids work for that $3,000.
Rude. Rude. They learned that the first mission is to familiarize themselves with the supernatural areas, and the person in each hotspot must remain in that area for a minimum of 15 minutes, observing carefully for any signs of the supernatural and reporting their findings. They must begin in the North Yard with a person investigating 3 hotspots: the infirmary, the Alamo, and the Hole.
I will say this for the cast. All of them, even the people like, what's hot guy's name? Steve. Who kind of is doing everything with a joke. They all are taking it pretty seriously. They're paying attention. They're, giving each other respect. They're talking things out. Like, no one thinks this is stupid.
No. Steve even, in interviews afterwards, he was like one of the few people who got interviewed for this article I read, and then I also kind of like Googled to see if he did any more articles. He said there were many moments that they didn't even show that he was really genuinely terrified and thought about quitting. So he was afraid,
Yeah.
but he also was like in the mindset that like MTV wouldn't put us out here to get hurt. And I was thinking, bro, you don't
You
know
were
that.
saying that.
Yeah. This was on a budget, so I mean, they don't intentionally mean to kill you, but it could happen.
Listen, if you accidentally die, that's not going to hurt the show.
Actually, it makes it better.
That's what I'm saying.
One of the rumors that why it got canceled, someone died. That is not true. We'll talk about why it actually ended at the end of the episode.
Cool.
But so we're back to the actual episode, and they have to draw cards, and the 3 lowest cards are unsuspecting victims who are going to have to be like the kind of investigators. The person with the 4th lowest card is our safety, and they're going to sit outside and kind of like wait to go in if anything, back up. So you have somebody there.
But literally, that's it.
Yeah.
Like that 4th person is just outside.
Yeah.
So
I think it's going to be like 5 people and then 1 navigator. But go ahead. Yeah.
But I'm just mean like, I don't know if I trust Becky outside.
Who I just met.
Who is shaking and terrified.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Steve's the one who's staying back, reading the computer instructions, and then communicating that over the walkie-talkies to everybody.
I actually think Steve is a great navigator.
Yeah.
And he really does a good job because also as a navigator, like you're the person on the walkie-talkie. So if one person is exploring and is really, really scared, the navigator can be there to kind of talk them down.
Yeah.
And Steve does a great job at that. Steve is a good navigator.
Yeah. I think the navigator is a really good role.
For sure.
So can I tell you another sidebar? Me and my homegirl, Jessica. Hey, Jessica, who used to live down the street from me, like when we were in middle school, high school, until I went to college.
Love it.
But when this show came out, I would go to her house all the time, and her basement cellar was like really old and really fucking creepy.
I'm already scared.
And we would take her dad's walkie-talkies, and
Stop.
Girl, I was like 14. I was probably too old to be doing this, but we were bored. Like, and then like we would give each other, one person would be the navigator, one person would be like exploring the basement.
I love it.
And it was like an old school cellar, like dark, scary
like
shit.
Conjuring cellar.
And there was a moment where like I was down there and I was like, Jessica, I'm scared. I'm coming back. Like genuinely. But we laughed and laughed, and we did that shit all the time. That was like our Friday nights.
I love it. That's so sweet.
Dumb. Anyways, Steve's a good navigator, and he's on the walkie-talkie leading the others through the task, and we learn a little bit more about the castmates as they walk through their hotspots. Christina isn't religious, but like Patricia said earlier, she's the one who describes herself as like a Celtic Catholic witch. Was that it?
Yeah, that's it. And I'm not sure, listeners, if you could hear my eyes roll.
Again, Derek gives some pseudo-intellectual answer to what he fears the most, which is the unknown.
Which, I mean, you're exploring a prison, so I'm not sure if you know this, but that's pretty unknown.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hard night.
Yeah, bro. And Lauren is afraid of death. She's straight to the point. And girl, yes, she said dead bodies, anything that's just straight up dead.
Don't like it.
Steve then gives the instructions that they have to inform one team member that one person has to go into the hole. And every time they say go into the hole or anything related to the hole, I giggle.
Because it's funny.
I digress. I'm a child.
For those of you who don't know, in old prisons, and I'm sure in still prisons today, the hole refers to solitary confinement.
Yeah.
So this is where a prisoner is not allowed out of their cell 23 hours a day. Sometimes 24 hours a day.
That's wild.
Maybe
so
they get to go to the shower.
inhumane.
Maybe they get to go outside for like 5, 10, 15 minutes. Most of the time, they're in this hole. And in this old-ass prison, it is literally like a pit. And they shackled you to the wall. Like, this is archaic. Like, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
Very bad place, the hole. That was wildly abused. Like, people would use it for nothing. You would, like, drop your fork in the mess hall. They'd be like, 3 days in the hole.
So, yes, as you just covered, it is absolutely just, like, awful. And during this documentary portion, we get kind of that same story read back to us, that the hole's an awful place filled with anger and horror. and danger. Nancy Meyer tells us that,
Yeah.
psychic lady. Um, Steve tells everyone else that as punishment, the guards would throw inmates in the hole naked in the freezing cold, fed from pig troughs.
Like making them eat off the ground.
And the only furniture that they had in this entire room was a bucket that they wouldn't empty, probably purposely. I
Yeah,
don't think
oh,
for
for certain.
days.
For certain.
Yeah.
Yeah. The feeling, because I am a very privileged person. And so a feeling that I hate more than anything is not being able to get warm.
Yeah.
And so the idea of West Virginia, you're naked in this stone room, I'm shivering thinking about it.
Yeah, it's wild. Ryan has to go to the infirmary where Ariana and Christina head to the Alamo. They named it that because in the documentary, one of the guys is like, the inmate said it was their last stand, and I don't know what that means, but it's the Alamo. Derek is then instructed to go in the hole, past several sets of doors, and pass a fence. We then seriously get this shot of Derek who doesn't even go into the hole. Like they make it a point to put on the screen that he is in a rule violation, that he doesn't go into the hole.
So like he goes far enough so that the safety can't see him. So he goes into the building.
Yeah.
But he's supposed to go like through 3 more doors, and he only goes through 2 more doors, and he just stands there. Derek 100% knows that he is breaking the rules.
Right?
It is not a confusion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the whole time Steve is navigating him. So Steve's like, okay, Derek, go through the door and then take 10 steps and turn right and then go through a door. And the whole time Derek is just not moving. He's like, okay, got it. Next.
Which, me too.
Listen, Derek and I have several things in common.
Back to Ariana. She's instructed to stay in Red Snyder's cell, who's was a murderer. I think he was convicted of murdering his father and one other gentleman. I'll have to do some research for that. Maybe give you an episode a little later about like kind of the history of the prison itself that we don't get on the show. But his cell also had a lot of violent things happen in it. So trigger warning here. He was stabbed, raped, and hung off the 3rd tier.
Yikes.
And then dropped. All 3, Ryan, Derek, and Ariana, must spend 15 minutes alone in their respective spots.
Okay, I got a little soapbox about this. 15 minutes alone in a dark room is a very long time.
Yes.
15 minutes is an entire episode of Steven Universe.
Great show.
That is a very long time. 15 minutes?
So later episodes, they do like hours. They leave people in there for like 24 hours.
Out of control.
Absolutely
not.
Ryan begins to hear clanging as he experiences a cold breeze fill his room.
So Ryan's in the infirmary.
Right.
Ryan is low-key the star of this whole episode. But just for a little context, Ryan's in the infirmary. So a little bit of a less scary place probably than the murder cell and the hole, but still the infirmary where I am sure terrible things happened all the time.
Yeah, I would assume that like a lot of the bad stuff that happened in the cells and stuff, people would come in there from the infirmary, maybe died in there.
I'm sure. And they say even in today's prisons, like if you have to go to the infirmary, there is a chance that you won't come out.
Oof.
Like that medical care is so sparse, like
yikes.
So not great, but not as bad as the hole in the murder cell. Even though he's hearing noises and a cold breeze from a room with no windows.
Yeah. His face says it all, though. He looks on the ground with his flashlight, and then you see like a ton of dead roaches. Derek, who's still not actually in the hole, remember this, waits, trying to pull a fast one on us. Like we would never see the footage. Come on, dude. Like you can't, whatever. And Ariana looks like she's in this creepy trance. Like she's sitting there, but she's also like staring at Red Snyder's cell in the wall, and the words Aryan Brotherhood are like scribbled on the wall. Yes, they are.
And trance is the perfect way to put it. Like, again, it's in the dark, and the audience can see it because of these special cameras. But Ariana is probably in the dark, or at least a pretty dark space.
Yeah.
But she is dead-eye looking at something. And it is the same shot that they play for a very long time. It is off-putting.
Yeah. It was strange. Let me ask you this. If you had to sit in a room, like one of the dares, would you close your eyes while you were sitting in there?
I had that same thought So I don't know is the answer because I am a coward, audience, if you didn't know. So like even if I will agree to go see a scary movie with my dear friends who love scary movies,
Me.
I will close my eyes the whole time or look down at my hands. And I'm like, I'm not looking up to see that scary clown. I don't care what you are trying to do. I'm not looking up. I hate it. Why did I come? So part of me wants to be like, yeah, I would just close my eyes. But what if something's there when I open them?
That was my thing. And how
Oh,
long has it been there? See, that's the scary part.
I agree.
I'd rather be able to see when it happened.
Yeah,
Okay, anyways.
good question.
Thank you. Audience, would you prefer to...
Weigh in. Yeah, let us know.
Ryan realizes that the sounds are actually coming from the ceiling, or what he thinks is the ceiling, when he gets the cue from like Steve that the time's up, and all three of them from their respective spots leave and run out the cells. They meet the group back in the yard, and they're all just really relieved, and they kind of like recount their experiences from like hearing voices, and then they also all said something about like feeling dread.
Yeah, Ariana was like, I just felt overwhelmed, like smothered.
So, okay, oof. I was gonna wait for this conversation to happen a little bit later, but do you think the women are having like a different experience in this male, like, man? You know what I mean?
That's the thing about, so in this case, in a lot of cases, prisons were men only institutions, right?
Right?
Even the guards and administration and stuff were men. So if there are women, and remember Nancy, a lady, she had the Nancy the psychic cop says
Psychic cop,
when
cop psychic.
cop psychic, when she's there, they want her out, right? They're
Yeah,
pushing her out. You don't belong, you don't belong, you don't belong.
yeah.
So even if the women aren't like, I would be scared to be in a place with a bunch of prisoners who are violent and I'm the only woman they've seen for 400 years. But also, like, you also don't belong here. You also stand out. You are also other.
Yeah.
I think it does. Listen,
Well, I mean, spoiler alert, listeners, I'm sorry, but like all the women who are in this episode do experience stuff I think is a little bit more intense than
yeah,
what the men in this episode
yeah, I
experience.
agree.
And it was just really on my mind. I was like, wow, that's really wild.
Yeah, it is.
The group gets back to the safe house for the next mission, this time in the South Yard. So the former safeties and the navigator, Lauren, Christina, and Steve, are now our investigative team.
Love it.
Ryan's acting as the new navigator. Steve is directed to go to the death row, and as he passes a graveyard, this motherfucker pulls out a cigarette and lights it, waiting for instructions. And that just made me like Steve so much more.
Me too.
I don't even smoke, but I was just like...
Also, self-soothing is key.
Yeah.
Like, if you do something you do all the time, if you're a smoker, if you light up a cigarette, you're immediately going to find comfort in that.
Yeah.
That is a part of your routine. Even if you're in a weird, scary place, oh, I'm cool. I'm smoking a cigarette. I do this all the time. Steve, smart. I like it.
Christina is instructed that she has to go to the Sugar Shack. And producer said the Sugar Shack is possibly the scariest place they were at.
The worse, the cutesier the name, the worse a thing happened there.
It's just an open room with pillars. Giant open room, creepy things painted on the walls, and pillars. Just remember that.
Yeah.
We learned from former inmates that this is where the killing zones were, essentially where people got cut up and chopped.
What? Why are people getting chopped up?
Girl,
like, is this where like the morgue was or something?
I think he meant just people were getting cut and just like...
Oh, like that was a good place to get fucked up.
Because yeah, when you look at it, it's just like a big open room.
Maybe that was barracks.
Ooh,
like maybe there were bunks in there, and
man.
a 20 people bunk, someone's getting fucked up in there for sure.
Dude, just like what's it called? Squid Games.
Don't even get me started. I just
spoiler.
watched all of Squid Games over the weekend, and I have a billion things to say about it. Different show.
Okay. Yeah. Our next podcast, Squid Games, with Patricia and Brandon.
Watch Squid Games. It's great.
So Christina is not keeping her cool.
Because she's alone in the Sugar Shack, right?
Yeah. And they're giving her instructions. She's already interrupting. but understandably so, because her equipment is like cutting out, and you can see the panic in her face when it's happening.
Hugely. And I think we have to remember again, guys, like she's in this scary place, and the only light is coming from she has a flashlight and there's a light on her camera.
Yeah,
But we hear from Christina that that the light is going in and out. Us, the viewers, can't see it because our view of the camera can see in the dark.
yeah,
And that makes it even more scary to me because it makes it seem like it's just her. It makes it seem
yeah,
like this is just happening to her. And that's even scarier.
yeah. That's wild. I need to think about that layer you just added to it, but and that also we are. This is gonna be a really long episode,
That's
folks.
great.
I'm sorry.
We love spooky shit. It's spooky season.
You being the only light source in this giant place, and it's facing you, so you can see a little bit around you, but you can't see outside that ring of light. That is terrifying.
That is terrifying. It's like when I go camping, this is my biggest problem with going camping, is when it gets very, very dark and I am the only source of light, that means I only have a 12-foot radius of light. And I'm surrounded by dark. It's dark except for my light. No. Nope. 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 Nope.
She keeps asking questions and gradually getting louder when she's instructed to go to the end of the hallway. Uh, this hallway is really long. It's half the basement of this like space. So it's like really, really long. And they tell her that. We learn from an inmate that the sugar shack, again, is where people got cut up and chopped up, whatever that means. However you want to put it, they got that way. So I just want to keep reiterating that. Christina gets to the sugar shack and Ryan asks if she's all right. Well, she replies, I am. There's an Indian on the wall and I'm happy about it.
Christina, I don't get you. You're weird. I don't know, Christina.
She then goes on to say, I'm going to tell you guys, you should be happy I came in the room and not you because there's a huge pinnacle on the wall. I feel like it's okay in here.
So
I think she's getting bad reads.
I think we got to think a couple of things here. So this is the lady who calls herself a student of witchcraft, right?
Correct.
A pentagram is a good symbol in witchcraft.
Okay, yes.
So when she sees it, she sees something familiar that is not scary.
Like Steve in the cigarette.
If Ryan saw it,
yes,
that would inspire fear.
Good.
So I think that's what she means. And she's like, oh, no. I know this imagery and I'm not scared of it at all. I think that's what she's trying to say.
Thank you for pointing that out. At that exact moment, editing.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lauren and Derek are safeties outside, hear kind of a noise. Lauren thinks it's a bat. Derek's trying to tell her and assure it's just a bird. She's wide-eyed and terrified. She sits in a silence. And then you only hear the fluttering again. And it's for sure a bat. Lauren's right.
It's 100% a bat. 51% of the mammals on Earth are bats. Don't be scared of bats.
Yeah, they eat mosquitoes, right?
Yeah, they're helping you out.
Thanks, bats. This is a PSA for bats.
Pro bat podcast.
Go see Batman.
I do love Batman.
Lauren then gets instructions that she's going to the Egyptian room. It's a chamber below death row where prisoners would await execution. You heard me. A chamber below where they would await.
I think it's so interesting that they called it the Egyptian room.
I don't get that either.
Like, is this like a mummification reference? Like, this is where you went to wait for death?
Good question.
It's interesting. Anyway, I digress.
No. We learned from a prison historian in the documentary that the last execution in the prison was by electric chair in 1959. The convicted murderer who's being interviewed, Mr. Collins, who is dead-eyed, like the way he stares off,
it is really off-putting.
He explains you can still smell flesh, and that it's a distinctive smell to it. It's like burnt flesh.
Oh, yeah.
Again, with the burnt flesh, if you listen to the Unsolved Mysteries episode, like they talked about that too.
It's a very distinctive smell, and you can't mistake it for something else.
That's
And
wild
I
to
bet at
me.
the prison, oh, can you imagine being a prisoner and like smelling it? The electric chair was archaic. I can't believe it's wild. 1959, folks. Betty White was already an adult and married with children.
To be fair, Betty White's 467.
She's immortal, but I'm
Yeah,
just
she's
saying.
a vampire, and we love her for
We
it.
love her.
Lauren receives further instructions on our mission to squeeze.
Nope.
Squeeze. Once I heard the word squeeze, I would be like,
Tapping
"What'd you
out. Let me
say?"
get up. I'll just go get my stuff and I'll just call an Uber.
Yeah, down a narrow corridor to the execution chamber where 9 men were put to their death. Lauren asked Derek to come with her, but she's a dum dum because that's against the rules. And this is an ongoing thing. I don't think Lauren understands the rules. And granted, this is like a pilot episode and she's young, but like there are several times where she does not grasp the basic rules of this episode.
I think also Lauren, to make a blanket statement without knowing her, she's a very cute girl. And when she asks Derek to come with her, she gives him like her big blue eyes and she like bats her lashes and she's like, "Will you come with me?" And he's like, "No, you have to go by yourself. It's the game." And she's shocked.
There's a. We'll talk about
Yeah,
it
we'll come back.
right now, actually. So Lauren and Derek have formed this weird relationship already. Like that's pretty fast. He tells her to come back to him at one point, like when she's about to go off to go to the Egyptian room. He's like, "Come back to me." And then like when they're walking there, she goes, "Can you go slower, sweetie?" And they call each other babe and baby and sweetie. It's really like you've known each other 4 hours.
Not to contradict you, but this is something that I made note when I was watching it for this episode, and I just double checked. They are all calling each other baby. Ryan on the mic to Christina is saying, "You're doing great, baby. You're doing great, babe." They have by night 2, they are like basically telling each other they love each other.
Well,
Like they are forming bonds very quickly.
so I say that, and I do know that the producers, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but they say that a lot of times, I mean, and you and I know this, like
Yes, we
when you're
do.
in like a stressful situation together, you form a bond, and that's kind of what they happens throughout this series with these
Absolutely.
people.
Absolutely. And again, not to harp on this, they are totally alone. There is no one else there. Like all they have is each other. So you have to trust them and they have to trust you. So you have to kind of open yourself up. So these relationships are going to form really quickly.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
very.
They're like, "Lauren, honey, you're doing so great.
You're doing an awesome
You
job,
have
baby.
to go in there and you have to take the tarp off the electric chair."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's at the end of the room, honey. No, honey, you got to do it. No. Yeah. You got to take the tarp off the electric chair. Nope.
Yeah, they're having like this conversation about this tarp. He's like, "I can get to you 10 seconds flat. Just do it. Just do it." She's like, "I don't want to." Then we go back to Christina, who is seeing blood and images on the walls. And I kind of, maybe she is seeing that shit. I don't know. But like when we see the walls, it's like paintings, but it could be blood too. I don't know.
And we don't know how much of the space has been manipulated by producers.
Truth.
Like, have they gone in there and written Aryan Brotherhood and put red paint just to inspire fear? You know, no pun intended. But it's interesting.
Yeah.
Christina has escalated very quickly. Like Christina is feeling a lot of feelings.
Yeah. Like you said, she's feeling a lot of feelings right now. She's starting to like, she grabs her walkie talkie and she's like, "I need to talk right now."
Yeah, and she's talking and she's talking and she's talking and she's not
Yeah.
listening. She's just talking and she's talking and she's talking.
But she does say what she wants. She's like, "Hey, I want to leave. I want to quit. I want to get out right now. Someone come right now." Ariana tells her Lauren is having her own issues and you need for everyone to chill so they can help each other out. And Christina's adamant. She's like, "I'm quitting. Someone get here now." And I don't blame her because this is when her camera light goes out and all that stuff. And like she gets really scared. Derek then overhears this on the walkie-talkie, and he decides he's going to go calm her down because Derek apparently is the one who calms everybody down. Lauren's like, "Please, Derek, don't leave," and he's like, "We got to go get to her." And so they leave. I'm assuming. Well, no, they didn't do the task. So like she didn't do her task. They
No.
just up and leave to go get Christina.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think Lauren is seeing this as oh yeah, let's go get Christina.
Yeah.
Like Lauren is
Yeah.
looking for any excuse to get out of this room. And she is fine with chasing after Derek. And I think at this whole time, remember, Christina's on the walkie screaming, like she's crying. My light's out, my light's out, my light's out.
Yeah.
I can't see. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. Like she physically thinks she can't leave the room. She needs someone to come get her.
I mean, she probably physically can't.
It's shocking. It's so
if
scary.
it's pitch black.
Yeah. And you feel that weight. They
Yeah.
all feel like they were put upon
Yeah.
when they're in this space. And maybe she couldn't physically move.
She cries too, and then she like begs Derek or anyone to come get her, please. You know what I mean? Then she says she hears something coming down the hallway, and Ariana tells her to like book it. She's like, "Girl, get out, leave." And then obviously she still can't. And then finally, like, Derek and Lauren run and get to her, and she's crying, she's praying, and then you get these shots of like the dark hallway, and they're just like yelling out to her, like, "Christina, Christina, follow my voice." And
it's really effective because, again, we're not seeing any corridor shots. The only images we're getting are the close-ups of the cast. So you just see, you see Christina sobbing and crying. You see Derek and Lauren very concerned, also flustered and running.
Yeah, and the cameras are shaky.
Because they're running.
Yeah.
And this whole time, Derek is screaming out like, Christina, Christina, if you hear me, follow my voice. Come to me, come to me. So Derek, well, I do think he has a bit of a Superman complex. I do think Derek is trying his best.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to talk her down. On the way to this, when they were all walking to their hotspots, Derek was talking how it's like, these are just energies. This is just energy. You can ignore it. Like, he was trying to psych the girls up.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. And that is the attitude I would be taking. I'd be like, they can't hurt me. I am a stone person. This is just energy. If I can take annoying energy, frustrating, this is just energy. I gotta walk past it, but whew,
damn,
scary.
You just made me see Derek in a whole new light. I appreciate that. Christina is sobbing at this point.
Sobbing.
Yeah, and she finally sees Derek's light and begins following him out. And when she gets to him, she's just like you said, speaking a mile a minute. And she's like, my light went out. I couldn't leave. That's not normal for all the lights to go out. And then she says this great quote, "You can't leave with no lights."
And she's right, baby. You're right, Christina, honey.
And yeah, and it was like the way she just said it, you can just tell she was just like really upset. So the investigative team decides to go outside, and Lauren and Christina are kind of like further a little bit back. And then like Lauren asks Christina, you can hear, she goes, "Are you okay?" And then that's when Christina just like kind of like breaks down and sobs quietly, says no, shaking her head. And that got me because I was like, wow. Like,
and these feel like sincere reactions.
Yeah.
At no point do I feel like Christina is putting this show on for the camera.
No. Once they're outside and they're like regrouping, Christina explains that she heard these loud steps coming downstairs, and she's not even sure if there were stairs in that room.
This is not the first. Stay tuned. There will be more mentions of steps.
She said the noise happened as soon as the lights went out.
No, if the lights went out and then I heard,
girl,
absolutely not.
Girl,
absolutely not. I'm calling for help.
I would just start swinging in the dark, and whoever's in there, you're getting hit.
100%. I was like, glad I brought this big knife.
I'm gonna practice my taekwondos. My Tabo. Just like punching the air. Back the fuck up, everybody. They walk back to the safe house, and then our title card informs us that it's night 1 still, 4:11 a.m. and all the dares have been aborted.
Not a single dare was accomplished.
Not good. Not a good look, fellas. Well, not a single, but the first round, like Ariana, Ryan,
right?
Yeah,
and Christina,
yes,
have all failed their mission.
No, they did theirs, Ryan and Ariana.
But right, Ryan and Ariana. My bad. I was thinking of Lauren, who didn't pull the tarp off.
Yeah. So like Derek, Lauren,
and Christina
did not.
Unsuccessful.
Yes. The women discuss how they've been feeling going through this so far. Ariana asks Christina a question that's kind of muffled. I can't really hear it, but it sounds something like, "What do you think could go wrong?" And Christina replies, "Hopefully not possession."
Christina knows what is up.
ma'am.
This student of witchcraft knows
Yeah,
what she's doing a little bit.
I ain't fucking with Christina. Like she's on it. And then Ariana assures her that's not going to happen to her. And you can't assure me that,
Sure
girl.
can't.
Don't do
Also,
that.
maybe it already happened. I was alone in the room and the light went out. I was alone.
Yeah.
How can you tell me it didn't already happen?
Yeah.
You can't. So I think while the other women were trying to help Christina by being like, what's the worst that can happen? I think that the opposite effect happened where they got Christina thinking about the worst case scenario and Christina's like, nope,
Yeah. And she began to
like
cry.
hardcore
And
cry.
everyone's like telling her, you're not going to get hurt. And she's still crying. Like, girl, y'all don't know that.
Sure
Shut
don't.
up. I wouldn't have told her like that. I would have immediately thrown holy water in her face. Like, be gone.
Why can't they just let her be upset? Why are they even talking? Just
Yeah.
let her talk. That's what will help her feel better.
Truly and honestly. 5:30 at the end of night one, as everyone else is going to bed, we see Christina leaving the chapel with her luggage. And in her exit interview, she informs us that she'll never do this again, but doesn't regret the experience of doing it. And that anyone who wanted to know what hell felt like, that this was like her closest experience to what hell was.
So it's like, this is your most open-minded person, really.
Yes.
And she is noping out after the first night.
The witch.
Like, she's like, oh, no. You can keep your $3,000. I'm not interested. Good day to you, sir.
I probably will quit right after that.
Don't blame her.
It's midnight, night 2, and our second night of terror begins. Ariana, Lauren, Steve, and Derek are our unlucky investigators this round. Ariana pulled the death card to determine her position as she has to go to the sugar shack and complete Christina's dare. Lauren and Derek return back to the Egyptian room to pull the tarp off. We get these creepy violins playing as we get hidden camera shots of various parts of the prison.
Classic.
Yeah, the tension's like building, everything. Derek gives Lauren a pep talk again and tells her to come back to him. She's like, come back to me, baby.
It's weird.
Yeah, as she walks away to the electrocution chamber where she has to squeeze in there. What seems like this long ass walk goes even longer because Derek starts singing at the top of his lungs for some inexplicable reason. Like, I would lose it. Like, okay, great. I'm about to get murdered, but now I have to get murdered to you singing.
So I think, again, not to be devil's advocate on the Derek topic, I think he's also trying to distract her. Also, making noise can be more comforting than silence. So he's like, singing Onward Christian Soldiers at the top of his lungs. Nothing bad's going to happen. That's just Derek. It also lets her know that he's close.
Okay.
That she's not she can still hear Derek. She's not even that far from Derek. So maybe that's why.
Maybe. But what happens if he accidentally goes like, oh!
Well,
that makes it scarier.
That's very scary.
Like he's just not singing anymore. Then there's this shot of her. It almost sounds like she's speaking in tongues. Did you notice that?
No.
Dude, she decides to quit then. Outside in the yard, she makes it official as she's talking to both Steve and Derek. I don't think Lauren again understands the rules because she asked if she could be the safety now if she didn't complete the task. She's like, can I be safety now?
No, bitch. Get your shit. You're done.
You're going home.
Like,
Twice
Christina
you quit.
just left. What did you think was going to happen?
Ariana comes back after completing her Sugar Shack task. And she looked genuinely terrified. She was the one who was in the Sugar Shack after Christina did not complete the mission.
Right. Ariana is the toughest chick here for sure.
Two of them down, and probably the two scariest places.
Yeah. But again, I feel like there's a real effect. Remember, Ariana was the one where we see her like in the first night. Ariana is the one where we see that trance where she's like staring off into nothing when she's alone in this room.
Yeah.
And then the second night, she's in the Sugar Shack, and when she comes out of the Sugar Shack, she's like horrible. She feels horrible.
Yeah. She said it just didn't feel right. She said she described it as evil, and she started to cry. I believe her because she's been doing the most shit.
For sure. So
for me, like, I kind of identify with Ariana in this situation because, like, there are times where you can feel something.
Absolutely.
Like, okay, so my one and only experience in kind of like feeling that, again, people who have listened before know that Patricia and I worked at a summer camp
for a long time.
Yeah. And one summer I was kind of like in charge, but it was also one of my nights off. So I really didn't have to be in cabins. And so at our camp at the time, we had a mess hall essentially, and then there's this attached sun porch that used to be used as kind of like the old infirmary, but then it became like the arts and crafts little
Right.
additional space.
Right.
That was attached to the mess hall that had our only phone essentially in the entire camp, right?
Right. Another thing to know about this is that the sunroom, the enclosed sunroom part of the building, was surrounded by the woods.
Yeah, it was on stilts.
It was
right?
on stilts. And so while the rest of the mess hall faced the rest of camp,
Yeah, on ground. Yeah.
the porch was kind of on the back. So when you were in there and you looked out the 3 windows, all you saw was woods.
Yes. And it was just like a giant window room.
Because it used to be a porch, so it was just filled in with windows.
Yeah. So I was sitting on the phone at this time. This is a cord phone, a phone with a cord.
Yep.
Not cordless. Sitting there, sitting in a chair with my back facing the woods.
Right.
So I'm a young gay kid. I was talking to my boyfriend on the phone at the time, so like giggling, kiki, and haha. And,
Thanks for the calling card, Dad.
yeah, right. So I'm sitting there, and then like as I'm sitting there,
this
talking
is very
on the phone,
late at night.
Very late at night,
like after midnight.
It was about 2:00 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm sitting there on the phone, and then I kind of feel weird, and then I hear kind of like kids giggling.
And so camp is on a slope, guys. Everybody sleeps at the top of the slope. The top of the slope.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the slope is where the woods are and the mess hall. Even if it weren't 2:00 in the morning, there's no reason for children to be at the bottom of the slope. Children should all be at the top of the slope in their bunks. Never mind it's 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah. So hearing like that giggling and laughing while I was sitting there on the phone, like hair stood on my neck, and I got this cold chill. And I was talking to my boyfriend at the time. I was like, "Hey, I've got to get off this phone." And the only thing that I could think of at the time was to run. And so remember, camp is at the top of the hill. That's where my cabin is. This is where like quote unquote everyone else is. This is where safety is. I figure it was like, if I'm going to die, I'm going to try and make it up this motherfucking hill.
Absolutely. And y'all, it's dark.
Yeah.
It's pitch dark at camp. Like, unless it's a full moon, it's dark. So Brandon has to run from the edge of the woods, which is where the porch is, up the slope to get to his cabin.
And let me tell you, baby, like once I put that phone down, I thought to myself, okay, once I put this phone down, I need to book it. Don't look back, run, go. And I hung up that phone, and I've never run as fast as I fucking could in my entire life to my cabin and like slammed the door and locked it. I don't know why I thought that was safety, but I just wanted to get away from those woods. I was like, that is
so scary.
Like yeah.
It's so scary. The dining hall at camp was always weird. Always weird stuff in there.
So Lauren leaves us and says, at least now she feels safe.
Bless her heart. Like,
I believe her.
Me too.
I believe her. As she quits, Ryan has to complete her dare.
Poor Ryan.
Hey, he already did one dare. I'd be so angry if it's my turn to come up again after
Me
I did
too.
something. Like, no.
Me too.
Y'all were supposed to do your own dares. Ryan's cool. He doesn't mind it until he has to squeeze down the corridor that is tiny. And you can tell he has reservations. And Derek is talking him up. Good job, Derek.
Yep, Derek's doing his best.
Yeah. He reluctantly travels down this long-ass corridor. And then he gets a glimpse of the electric chair. And he explains, he's like, oh, shit. And quite honestly saying to me, because he's like, it looks like somebody's in that chair.
Right.
And it did look like somebody was in it.
It did, 100 million percent. And again, not to call back to the Conjuring every single episode.
I appreciate you doing that.
But it made me think of that basement scene.
Yeah.
Where they put the cloth over her and then the chair rises up. No.
No.
Nope.
Also, speaking of the Conjuring, sorry, that clapping scene always gets me.
We can't even talk about it. I'm gonna throw up.
We watched that the other night.
Love it. It's such a good movie.
Spooky season. Best movie. Derek begins rapping. He's like, you're platinum, you're a rock star. And he keeps doing it over and over. Shut up, Derek. I don't want to get murdered to your rap. Okay, please shut the fuck up.
I think he's helping. I think he's trying to be helpful.
Are you Derek's wife? Why do you know?
I think what it actually is guilt because Derek faked his dare.
Yeah,
So now he's trying to like hype other people up because he feels bad because he didn't do his dare.
fair point. Fair point. So Ryan keeps saying that there's someone in the chair, and they tell him just turn on the light. The light in question is this flimsy single bulb with a long string that's just kind of like swinging there.
That's 20 feet away from the chair. This is a huge room, and the chair
Man,
is all the way down at the end.
it's closer to the chair than not. It's closer than I would go to the chair.
Right, of course. But I'm just saying that light is not going to be effective.
We get this creepy violin music that just keeps getting faster and faster.
The music is really
They do a great job. Yeah, like the score
really
on this
sets
show,
the tone.
it really does. Like it just props. Ryan does pull the string, but it flickers and it's like this dim glow that actually somehow makes it creepier. It doesn't help out the situation at all. It just is like, great, now I'm gonna die with a strobe light. Ryan at this point is screaming like Chris Tucker in Fifth Element.
He's
dude.
full Ruby Rod screeching.
Screeching.
Yeah, rightfully so. I feel him. And this whole time because he knows he has to pull the tarp off. So not only is he scared, but I think he's also trying to hype himself up.
Yeah.
He's like, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. I gotta do it. And it's like, you just feel for him. I really feel for him.
Everybody's kind of like giggling over the mic or like the walkie-talkies and stuff, which is really funny. But he finally pulls it, but then it snags and gets caught.
Snags on the chair. And instead of ripping off the chair, it pulls the chair closer to Ryan. That only makes him much more scared.
Yeah, screams more. Keeps yelling, oh my God, oh my God. And then he gathers himself finally to complete the dare. And once he finally does it, everybody's cheering for him.
Because
like
you have to.
Yeah.
I'm cheering for him at home. I'm like, yes, good job.
Yeah, everybody's like jumping up and down. It's really it's kind of like a cute little bonding thing.
Plus, it means nobody else has to do this fucking dare now.
True.
Like, we can move on to something else.
I support everyone doing their own dares.
Seriously.
I would hate if somebody quit. Like, later episodes, the computer, you get assigned a color, and the computer, quote unquote, assigns, quote unquote, like a random person to take over the task based on the color. So it's just
I hate it.
Yeah. Back at the safe house, the group, they have to determine what they think is the most haunted area of the prison, and they all kind of agree it's the Sugar Shack.
Yeah.
Right. And Ryan and Steve, they're kind of chosen to go investigate it using the ghost hunting equipment, like the infrared cameras, which apparently they pick up ghosts and hauntings.
Interesting.
The naked human eye can't see. We learned from a historian in a documentary that the Sugar Shack is a repository of negative energy. It's a terrible place. It's eerie. And like everyone who's gone there has really had kind of like weird feelings. Ariana
very
said
strong
it,
reactions.
Cried. She said she didn't like it.
Sent Christina home.
Yeah.
And I think it's
producers.
Good. Steve finally has to do something.
He's been
Let's
navigating,
get pretty boy
bro.
Steve out in the field.
Get out there, man.
See some scary shit.
Hottie. Once they get to the hot spot, they're instructed to use the EMF detectors and night vision goggles to kind of walk the entire space of the Sugar Shack. It's kind of like they're mowing the grass.
That's what gets me is they're like, explore the room as if you're mowing grass. So you're walking down, you're walking back, you're walking down, you're walking back with night vision goggles, which are then when you take them off, they're going to mess with your vision.
Yeah.
So your eyes are going to not readjust. Like this is just they're making them do the most.
Yeah, Steve freaks out though when he puts them on. Ryan screams, and because they both hear footsteps. Like Ryan keeps saying that he's like seeing kind of like shadows and stuff like that. And the footsteps again in the Sugar Shack.
Yep.
Same place Christina says
those
she heard
steps.
Footsteps.
Down steps that aren't there.
Yeah. Ryan is instructed to leave Steve alone with the goggles for 2 minutes. Steve's equipment goes out, and he hears those footsteps. He's saying that they were getting closer. They were like coming for him. Steve starts to freak out.
Steve's freaking out. I'm freaking out. We are freaking out.
Yeah, we're all freaking out here. By that time, his time is up. And he's in the yard telling the camera that is the scariest thing in his life. He freaked out. He was alone. He said he would have caused harm to himself if he
That's what
was
he
by
said. He's
himself.
like, when I was by myself, I wanted to hurt myself. I wanted to cut myself.
That's so wild.
And the sugar shack is where people got cut up, right?
Yeah. He said the shadows were coming in and out of the camera. He said the steps sounded like they were coming from a giant,
Oh my
getting
gosh.
closer and closer. And Ariana agrees with him. She says she heard the same thing when she was in there.
Ariana is the only girl left.
Yeah. It's 2 a.m. on night 2, and Derek is now aware that he broke the rules, which I was waiting. I was like, hey, somebody needs to address
Like,
this. Why is he still
hi,
here?
this needs to happen.
So the first night, he didn't complete his task of going into the hole. So now he has to actually go into the hole. And me, myself, personally, I've never had problems going into the hole.
Some might say that you're an expert at going into the hole.
Truly and honestly. So he has to go in the hole this time and sit in a metal chair and record paranormal activity with an EMF detector. I think EMF detectors detect electromagnetic fields.
Exactly.
Okay. And that is science.
And again, for 15 minutes. So that's a long time.
Yeah. Psychics have actually said the hole is one of the most active with paranormal activity. So we get this interview in the documentary once again with a paranormal investigator, and they explain to us that electrical equipment, mechanical equipment, it's very prone to failure in certain haunted places. The historian tells us that this is the room where people would get shackled, like Patricia was saying, to the walls. They will leave them there for a week or 2 weeks, which is absolutely brutal and inhumane. Our convicted murderer in the interview process tells us that they had only a room that had a hole in the ground for their bathroom, and anyone that went in the hole, they were in danger.
It's just, it's not only a danger physically because you're alone, maybe you're hurt, maybe you're nude, maybe it's cold, maybe it's hot. It's also the fact that you're alone with your thoughts. You have no outside stimulation. So it's not even like the physical harm of the hole, it's the emotional harm.
Yeah.
People will go mad.
Before Derek leaves, Ariana holds his hand and tells him to think light.
Good advice.
She said that there are things there, that darkness has been corrupting her mind specifically and all their minds. And the only way to fight that is to think light.
That's what Lorraine Warren always said, that if you are encountering paranormal things, if you think of yourself surrounded by light, she would always say white light, that nothing could come into that light. Things of darkness can't come into light. So even if they're near you, it's not going to come into your light as long as you picture yourself surrounded in light.
Thank you, Lorraine Warren. I'm about to do all that. It's kind of weird that Ariana knew that.
Yeah.
She doesn't say like she's like spiritual or anything like that. But interesting.
She's smart. Ariana's good.
Yeah, she's my favorite.
Me too.
Derek, he's outside in the yard when he gets his instructions to go into the chair and turn off all the lights,
including his light, his no flashlight, and he has to turn off the light that's attached to his camera.
maintain radio silence for 15 minutes, and only listen to the EMF detector. Derek stops and tells him he needs a moment to pump himself up. He actually gets himself to the room this time, and he sits in a chair, but then he runs out.
Yeah, he almost gets it, and then he panics.
Yeah, and Ryan empathizes with him while he's on the walkie-talkie. He's like, "Hey, I went through the same fucking thing with the electric chair." And he reassures Derek that Derek is platinum, doing the same thing.
It's that same thing, like that light, like you shine. You're a diamond. Even if you're in the dark, you're not even in the dark because you shine with light. Like they're really trying to help each other.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about that, and that warms my heart.
Me too.
Derek kind of has a crisis and falls to his knees on his yard. He's like walking back to the safe house, and he starts to cry. He momentarily quits.
Yeah, Derek is having a really hard time.
Yeah. He learns that they're not done with the challenge until he completes the mission. And again, Ariana comes in with a pep talk. She's like, "This is all you. You don't even have to worry about us. This is all in you."
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah. He grows a pair, and by pair, I mean fallopian tubes.
Nice.
And sits in the chair in the dark. The radio silence begins, but he starts singing again.
Okay, hear me out. Number one, this is self-soothing.
Okay.
Number one. Number two, again, see my note earlier about my comfort movie of Moana. If you're sitting there and I'm singing, or like for me, it's Steven Universe songs. So if I'm sitting
Yes.
there and I'm singing Giant Woman and I'm just smiling and I'm like, "Ooh," and I'm like doing the high notes, I'm not thinking about this person who died in here, or you know what I mean? Like if you got to trick yourself. It's a mind thing. You're just in a room in a chair.
Yeah, that's true. I would sing the shit out of some
Mm,
Moana songs,
or
bruh.
fucking Tina Turner, or whatever hypes you up. Like do it. Whatever. Boom, 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 boom. Like whatever makes you happy and will distract you from the dread and terror and sadness that this whole place reeks of. Do whatever you have to do.
That's really good advice.
It does make him look crazy.
Yeah, but he's sitting there singing to himself when his time goes up, and he has the EMF detectors, but they're beeping like crazy
Yeah,
at
they're
this
going
point.
crazy.
I don't know if that's like actually what's happening, but it's happening. You hear the beeping.
Right.
We don't get any confirmation from Derek over the walkies with the other team, who other people of the team who are like in the safe house.
And again, it's really good. It's good TV because Steve, I think, is the one on the walkie. And he's like, Derek, Derek, come in. Derek, Derek, over, Derek, Derek. And there's nothing,
Nothing. Yeah.
nothing, nothing. And then Derek just pops up. And it's like people lose their shit. By people, I mean me.
Yeah, and so like as he walked into the door, they all celebrate because they know that the mission's
They
finally
don't have to do
complete.
anything else. Like
Yeah.
it's over.
So they start like this bonfire and they just dance and celebrate and love on each
Because they're
other.
rich. They got $3,000.
Yeah. So that's the end of the pilot episode of MTV's Fear. So this is what they showed MTV. MTV loved it after they found out that like Blair Witch Project was going to be super dope. So they greenlit this, and on September 21st, like we were saying, 2000, this became a hit.
Huge hit.
This was MTV's second highest rated show at the time.
Really?
Yeah, second rated. I think TRL might have been the first, but I'm not 100% positive about that. I'll have to double check. But this was like their second rated highest show when it got canceled. They did not cancel it because it was like low ratings, and they didn't cancel it because of the people or the rumor that someone died on the show.
Mm-hmm.
They canceled it for kind of like a couple reasons, but the main reason, it was expensive to produce.
Which is wild to me.
Well, hear me out. They went to different locations every single episode.
Sure.
They had a cast every single episode. They would have to recruit like people to go to those episodes. They filmed a documentary every single episode.
Oh, sure.
They had to fly people out every single episode.
Sure.
So they were like using a lot of time.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so like during I think the first season was 10 episodes total. The second season was only 6. For the second season, like MTV was like, hey, can you make this for cheap? And they wanted them to cut the documentary portion out altogether.
I think that's foolish.
Yeah.
You have to provide context.
Yeah. And then like the second season, they were also trying to like go, or they did go internationally, and they were planning on going other places too. Like they had ideas for like going to like the catacombs.
Mm-hmm. The good idea in Paris.
Yeah. So like you just think about how much money that actually costs, because like when you think about other reality shows, they have a cast essentially for the entire season.
So question, what if they had just had one cast?
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, what if like they revive Fear, but they kind of did it in the way. I think that would work. I think like if you spent longer time, say a week in a haunted location,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and then like I think that could definitely work.
The only argument against that I can think of is that the cast would be a bit more battle worn. Like they wouldn't be as easily scared. They're like, oh, no, this place wasn't nearly as scary as the last place. Or remember 2 places ago where we did this and we all felt better. Like it takes, or like too much camaraderie would build up. And they would feel so safe with each other as they'd gone through all these experiences together. So.
Oh, I was thinking just like one season, one place.
Oh, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I was thinking.
That's a great idea.
Because save money. Yeah. One season, one place, you can get a lot of history. And I mean, like it could be, they took, I think 200 some hours, maybe not that much, but considering like each person's camera is like hours together, filmed it and made it a 45-minute an hour show.
Yeah.
Like if you did that for a span of like 8 or so episodes.
Or even 6.
Yeah, I think that could be done.
Especially if you did like notoriously haunted places.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that was one of the reasons, but then they also, you have to think again, the time period when this ended, 2002. This is after 9/11. And there was a lot of controversy. Oh, not necessarily controversy, but there was talk amongst the producers where they think MTV was just trying to go for more like feel good programming at the time. They didn't think that like having people running down hallways alone, scared, was a good look after.
I mean, there's some, I can see some of that.
Yeah.
I also think, especially, this is as a bit of a true crime nut, we see this argument in true crime a lot, where people care too much about the event and not enough about the people affected by it. So, like, if we go to, say, an insane asylum, mental hospital, and we do a ghost hunter there, is that respectful to the people who suffered at these hospitals? To like run around from the ghost of the little girl who died? Like, is that respectful to that little girl or that little girl's family?
Right.
It's tough. It's a tough line to walk.
Yeah. There was actually some really interesting things that happened like after filming and during filming that the production crew like talked about.
Love it.
They were just saying that there was a lot of weird energies, especially with this prison in particular. They said after shooting, they went into a diner when a telephone pole cracked in half, this giant telephone pole, and it almost killed everybody that was in the van.
Oh my God.
It made the local news. It was their first night of filming.
Oh my God.
They said that it came out of nowhere, that they were in Denny's, the lights went out, and then the pole just fell down.
No.
There were like people in hazmat suits, fire trucks, everyone. They were directing traffic. It was really, really crazy. They said that like Beau Flynn said that when he got back from filming this particular episode, his house was infested with rats.
What?
Yeah. One of the associate producers, Alyssa Phillips, she said when they were actually filming, so she did a dry run with the walkie talkies, the headset, and no flashlight to test their directions that they would eventually give them for the episodes they were going to be filming like the next couple days.
Sure.
She said it was pitch black. She was being read the same exact directions. And then on the other end of the walkie-talkie, they said, so climb up a ladder in front of you, go to the top. Again, there's no light at all. And then they say, walk 3 paces forward. She says in her ear, she heard someone say, no.
Oh, all the hair on my arms just stood up.
She said, I vividly remember someone saying that. She relayed it back. I'm not doing this. Like she's like, I'm not going 3 steps forward. She has like the headset in, but she heard someone say no outside the headset. The next day, when the crew was doing like all the rigging, putting all the wires and stuff up, someone went to her and was like, thank God you didn't do that. She said, it turns out that there was an enormous trap door where that prison was. And it was like for the hay for like to put down for horses and stuff like that. It was 10, 15 feet wide. She said if she would have walked that 3 feet, she would have fallen to her death.
Oh my God. And that puts a whole different context on the no. Like that person was helping.
Yeah.
My heart is beating. I watched this episode of Fear on YouTube, which is also where I think Brandon watched it. You can watch a lot of Fear on YouTube. The comments are amazing. Everyone is like, this was the best show MTV ever had. I loved this show. Why did it get canceled? Like, people had so many feelings about this show. And that made my heart grow 10 sizes. Like, I love people being excited about
Man,
something.
I love that show too. I really do think it was like one of MTV's better programming choices. I stand by that.
We are definitely going to do a mini episode about the prison because there's a lot of history here.
Yeah, the West Virginia State Prison.
And we are going to talk about it. Thank y'all for tuning in. If you have any questions, suggestions, or embarrassing confessions, send us an email at thewaybackrecap@gmail.com. Again, thewaybackrecap@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at thewaybackrecappod. Our meme game is stepping up. If you'd like to support the show, or listen to bonus content, exclusive episodes, etc., visit our Patreon page.
Our original cover art is by Laura Strobish. Remember, wherever you listen to podcasts, follow or subscribe to the Wayback Recap. If you enjoyed yourself, please rate and review the show, but if that's too much,
We totally get it.
tell a friend.
Preferably the responsible friend who will rate and review the show.
And join us next time. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Patricia. And on behalf of the Wayback Recap,
Take care of each other, y'all.